this session in the conference room at Fairmont Clinic in Fairmont, West Virginia on April 20, 1974 at 10:30 a.m. I am M.H. Ross, the administrator of Fairmont Clinic, and with me are two former coal miners from Weston, West Virginia, Mr. George W. Tenney and Mr. Marley S. Parmer, P-A-R-M-E-R. I believe both of you have applied for black lung benefits. Is that right, Mr. Tenney?
We have.
And Mr. Parmer? Okay. And I believe, Mr. Tenney, you said that you were turned down. How many?
I've been turned down twice for the federal.
Okay, and Mr.
I've been turned down 4 times.
Okay. That may be because I'm closer or my voice carries better, that if you could move your chairs in. What I thought we'd do, according to the discussions we had earlier, Mr. Tenney, was go back over this very interesting background, not only that you each had individually, but both of you, and you especially, were employed at a state-owned mine in Weston.
I were.
And yet you were never a civil service employee, and you were never allowed to be a union member because you worked for the state, so that in many ways you ended up without either UMW pensions and without state pensions. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then Mr. Parmer is with you today. We're essentially going to focus on the state-owned mine, but we'll be interested in each of your backgrounds, because I don't think much of the public realizes that the state was in the coal mining business. Now with this energy crisis, why, you know, there's more interest in all this. Maybe certain people were neglected. So let me just, you were you born and raised in the area that you now live in Lewis County?
No, I was born and raised in Upshur County.
In Upshur County.
Up at Alton.
Mm-hmm. And then you came into Lewis County. You were in the CCCs for how long in the 1930s?
47 months.
All right. And then did you come to Lewis County before World War II or right after?
I come there in 1944.
All right. Did you go to work? Did you first work in a mine in Upshur County?
Yeah, that was first mine.
What was the name of that mine?
Mill and Todd Coal Company.
And they were located at?
Adrian
in Upshur County.
That is correct.
You stayed there about how long?
6 months.
Enough to get a miner's certificate.
That is right.
Then did you immediately move over to Lewis County and go to work in?
I still lived in Lewis County when I worked for Mill and Todd Coal Company. Was living in. So I got married in '44 on June 29th, and then went to work at Adrian, or Mill and Todd Coal Company. And when I left from there, I went to work for the state, Western State Hospital, coal mines.
Okay, let me hold just a minute. Now, Mr. Tenney, you went to work in 1945 for the Western State Hospital coal mines. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Because I don't think many people in the general public are at all aware that there was a state of West Virginia coal mine at Weston. What was the coal output used for?
It was used for the hospital, for the heating of the whole hospital there.
And what was the how was the mine called where you went to work?
The mine I worked at was number 2 mine.
Number 2 mine. Would you describe where it was?
Well, they have a Stonewall Jackson Hospital right beyond the entrance going into the mines on 33, the way they brought their coal out. Off of Murphy's Creek side, down over on Pope Creek on 33, and out 33 into the hospital.
All right. Was it was not a shaft mine, was it a drift mine then?
It was a slope mine.
You went in
Yeah.
You went in on a straight level.
That's right.
You didn't slope down though.
No.
You went in on a straight, a drift, I think they call it, where the mouth drifts in.
That
Okay.
was a drift.
And It was not mechanized? Do you use horses or
We
ponies?
used horses, we used ponies and mules.
Mules,
small
okay.
stock.
Some of these look like mules, and some
Yeah.
look like ponies, is
Yeah,
that right?
we have ponies, we have mules,
Okay.
all in those strings there.
Okay. I'm looking at some photographs that Mr. Tenney brought along. How about the cars, the coal cars? Would you describe them?
Well, those coal cars roughly would average, I would say, in a neighborhood of 2 ton.
They were wooden cars.
They were all
appear to be,
wooden cars.
with
wooden
just steel bands or
steel,
some
steel straps
straps on them,
on
right?
them.
And the mules and ponies were used. How about machinery? Did you have any undercutting
No.
in the whole period you
It
were
was
there?
all hand working.
Okay, I'd like you to tell me, first of all, when you went to work there in 1945, how far from the time you entered the drift mouth was the face, and how far did it get developed? You said you finished working there in 1970 when they closed the mine?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that pit in number 2 mine there was back, oh, I'd say right close to 1,000 feet on the Pope Creek side. And we finished mining the Pope Creek side out, and they made another opening. It was still the same block of coal, but they made another drift to go in, pick it up to keep from having to come back up around on a circle there, where they come straight out of it to the temple. But it was all downhill there. And then we got in trouble with the water situation that backed up in the old opening there when they cut through. We had to use pumps and keep a low sump in there in order to pump this water out to keep it off the main line out of the working places.
You had to start using that pump about when, in the 1950s? Or?
No, it was up in the late 60s.
Okay. So they were using another opening by then to avoid going around in a half circle.
That is right.
And were you using the same tipple? Or
Same tipple.
Okay, but the new drift opening was better accessible.
That's
But it was a
right.
steeper incline going in?
It was steeper going in, steeper coming out harder.
Right.
You pull less out there with
Yeah,
your
how much of a
stomach.
grade was there, if you had to guess that?
That would be that'd be a hard guess to make.
But the ponies were working harder.
Yeah,
Get out of
you
that
had
thing.
to, in other words, you cut your trip. Where you've been pulling 6 out of the old opening and going back in with 6 empties, you could only get out of the new opening, new pit with 3 cars.
Okay. Now, how about telling me what your job was? If you were several jobs, what did you start doing, and what did
Well,
you do in the mines?
Start with the coal mine, start loading coal there. They run short a driver. To the best of my knowledge, I thought it was temporary. I'd taken driving from them when they run short a driver. And I drove, I don't know, I expect I'd load coal just about a year then. And I drove in for about a year. And after that, driving there, I had taken, lifting one morning there, helped put a car on the track. All right. I don't know, I took to catch my back, and it just, well, I was off for a while, and when we did get able to go back to work, why, you understand what I mean? I got this catch on the job there.
Uh-huh.
But through the mine foreman and all the ruling and stuff, they thought there wasn't anything wrong with me. Well, I was off, and when if I hadn't been for one of the neighbors, I'd tell you the truth about it. I don't know what I'd have done there because I'm in such
All right.
shape.
When, this was around what year that you were off, and for how long?
That was-
with the injury?
That was about 47.
You were off about how long?
Oh, I was off 30 days or longer. And,
Of course, there wasn't any sick leave like state employees had, even though you worked for the
no
state.
benefits. I get a no benefit whatever.
Mhm.
I even had my own doctor bill.
What were you
taken
being
care of.
paid then? Were you paid on tonnage some way, or were you paid
Well,
by the hour?
no, I was driving that time. I was being paid by the hour.
Do you remember any of your wages when
That
you
was
started
$6.75 a day
at that time?
at that time,
And that was about the year
47.
1947, okay. All right, you were driving a team. What did you do when you came back after that?
Well, I loaded coal for about 6 months.
The loading was always at the face. You were
That
filling
is
coal
right.
cars, and you're talking about good, heavy back-breaking
That's
labor
right.
with a shovel, okay.
That's correct.
How was the top in this mine?
Well, some places we had fair top. Some places where we cut through those clay veins and stuff, why, top wasn't no good. It
And
was a
how
lot of
high
trouble.
was the coal seam in
Oh,
general?
it run anywhere from 48 inches to 7 feet.
Mhm. And you were timbering as you worked, I take it.
That is right.
And how was the timber delivered to the mine, or how did they?
Yeah, they had to
They
timber
bought the
delivered.
posts and so forth, and
They
had them
bought the
delivered.
posts and bought the crossbars and stuff of that
Right.
sort.
Were you using any roof bolting in that
No,
mine? None
no,
at all?
no
Okay.
roof bolt.
How big a crew was there when you started,
Well,
and how many shifts?
they had one shift when I went to work, and it was all-day shift. And they had 6 men when I went to work.
Who was the mine foreman at that time? Can you remember?
A fellow named Mike Lilly.
Was when you first went to work?
He was there when I first went
Mhm.
to work. And I think Mike had went to work there in July, and I went to work in January
Mhm.
on the 16th.
How long had number 2 been open, as far as you could tell at that point, when you went there in 1945?
It had been open 5 years, according to the report on the cement on the tipple.
Mm-hmm.
Because the tipple was established in 1940.
Right. And how long did Mike Lilly remain foreman?
Well, I'd say up 54.
Okay. Is he still alive, or?
No, Mike's dead.
Mhm. Who followed him as mine foreman?
A fellow by the name of Joe Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
Joe's dead.
Then didn't a man from this county, Gordon Ott,
Gordon
get the
Ott
job?
took Joe's place.
Mhm. And Gordon Ott is still alive around Rachel, as far as you
He's
know.
around Rachel as far as I know.
The Otts, are a big family around
Yeah.
that area. Actually, didn't the mine foreman, in effect, change with the politics of the state each time?
Yes, sir.
In other words, a Democratic mine foreman came in, if the Democrats had it, and
That was ruling.
Gordon Ott came in with Governor Underwood. Wouldn't that be fair to say, the way
It
it
would
worked?
be fair to say. and
Okay. It was a state job in every respect, except the foreman job changed. They didn't turn over the men as much, I guess.
Well, they didn't turn the men over as much, but they
They could change them a little, couldn't they? Bring on more.
They done no hatchet work. You might put it like that.
Mhm. Did they ever sort of make you kick into the flour fund, as they say?
Well, you didn't have no choice if you worked.
How did it go? How would it describe what you mean by that? Like they'd come around before election time or something?
Well,
How
they
did
set
they-
up a base on that on a 2% base, and that's what you paid on it.
Was it taken right out of your pay or what?
No, you panhandled it to them in cash.
You handed it to the mine foreman in cash, right?
That's right.
Now, was that true when you first started there? I mean, you hear that in the other
No,
people in the
when
state.
I first started there, they come around for donations.
Mhm.
They come around for donations.
Mhm.
Well, you felt a heck of a lot better towards giving a man a donation. You didn't think too much about giving him a donation or something. But when they got a hatchet over your head, you either pay or no.
When did the
dog.
hatchet start about? And did it stay right till the end then?
That Baron was.
The Baron was the worst at that, huh? Okay.
That was when the hatchet worked.
Around 1960, roughly, something like that. You felt like from then on you had to give 2%, like at payday. You'd
That's
cash
right.
your check and hand it to him in cash that day or the next day.
Well, no, it was It was within a day or so after the payday. You had
Yeah.
to pay it. They did, if you didn't
You'd
pay
give
it.
cash to the mine foreman or to the
Well,
clerk or what?
I'll tell you,
Mhm.
most
How would-
usually, they collected that, you take that and turn it into the office,
Now, by the office, where was the office for this?
at the state hospital. It was
Then
clerk.
You
the
went to a clerk at the state office
The
and you
clerk.
sort of, he took your name down, or how would he get the
Well,
donation?
He was always, he'd always have a record of that.
Okay.
Each
He was
and
waiting for
every
you to
man.
give him the sum.
That's
because
right.
He knew what you made and he knew what you owed.
That's right.
Okay. Now, that continued until you quit, from 60 to 70 roughly, or not?
No, there was a slight change made in that during the Republican takeover there.
Oh, I see Mr. Palmer's been, he's got something he wants to add here. And Mr. Palmer worked off and on. We're going to get his work record a little later. You worked off and on at this number 2 mine. Why don't you tell me your impressions, Mr. Palmer?
Well, about the fire thing there, they was gonna fire me because they didn't pay it, and I wrote them a check,
Yeah,
and they wouldn't accept the check. They held it for 2 weeks and turned it back.
yeah. Somebody upstairs didn't want a record of that, did they?
No. Then they taken it up over town, and some lawyer did and took it out.
You went with your check to somebody, you mean, when you were
No,
angry with it?
somebody
Oh,
else.
somebody else
I-
decided that they better not accept
I
the
wrote
check,
them a
yeah.
check for it.
Yeah.
They was gonna fire me if I didn't pay it.
Yeah, right. So there was no kidding about this. In other words, even before Barron in 1960, you had to give the money, but they covered it up, making it look better before that,
That's right.
like a donation, right? Like it was somebody sick and they were taking out the
It was
donation.
it was all a cover-up.
Yeah, but it always was there, no matter which party was in. The miners were always forced to kick in at this
That's
coal
right.
mine, just like they were political state employees. Huh? Did you feel the same way about the foreman,
You either
Mr.
kicked
Palmer?
in or you didn't work. That's it.
Okay. So that you might not be picked by that political party, but you at least had to come over and give to the one that won.
That's right.
Did anybody ever give them a hard time about it, besides what you say you did there, Mr. Palmer? Can you ever remember an incident about it,
Well-
somebody just telling them to go jump with it? Or
There was one woman that started the ball to roll nowhere, got rid of that, I think. And there was a clerk.
in the hospital, you mean?
Yeah, there was a clerk there by the name of Henry J. McKinley. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not.
Tell me about it.
He was, I suppose he was Barron's right-hand man that
Mhm.
he sent there.
Mm-hmm.
But this woman, I don't know, she got a hold of some kind of proof, got evidence some way or other that where they walked into it. And she had McKinley in court over it. But somehow or other the man weaseled out. I don't know just what happened, that he weaseled out of it, that
Mm-hmm.
it was not, he wasn't prosecuted
Right.
over collecting it.
How many men, now let's go back, we've got the foreman, but about how many men are we talking about? There's one shift, 1945, about how many men are working at the mine, in and
Well,
around the mine?
They usually had around 6 loaders
Mm-hmm.
in order to supply coal for that hospital. And usually 2 to 3 day man.
Mm-hmm. All right, now let's talk about actually getting out the production. Was it done in the regular old-fashioned way? You had a guy drilling, is that right?
A guy drilled his own holes,
Mm-hmm.
he shot his own holes, he loaded his own car most usually. There wasn't too many doubled up in there.
These
Once
were
in a
guys who
while.
generally had trained or worked in other mines, and they knew, were they trying to drop a pretty big block of coal or break it into pretty good lumps? I mean, they knew what they were doing pretty well for that seam and that production.
They crushed that coal all the
Mhm.
time, and most usually the coal was shot pretty hard
Mhm.
in order to.
Mhm. You remember how deep they were drilling, or?
Oh, they drilled anywhere, I'd say, to breaker shots anywhere from 3 to 4 foot breakers in there, and in order to close the rig in, if you got your good breaker shots, you could pull a little bit more of a hole on it.
Were you leaving pillars as you went?
We left pillars and pulled pillars back as we come back.
How big were the pillars you were leaving?
Oh, what would you say, Marley, on that?
It was about 40 by 50.
40 by 50. And then, let's say, on that Pope Creek side, did you go back out taking your pillars as you went? before you
Well,
made the other opening, or
they got a majority of them.
partly? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Palmer? Has that, what was above you there? I assume you were drifting into a pretty big hillside. Was there a pasture above there? You were off of state property at that point? or-
No,
No.
no.
The state owns a good bit adjoining the hospital. This is adjoining the hospital.
That is right.
So is that a pasture up there, or just state-owned
Well, they
property
had
that's not used
pasture,
for anything?
they had meadow,
Yeah.
all.
Right. Okay, do you have any idea, you ever heard figures of production? How much production you were getting out, a year, a month, a day?
Well-
What do you figure?
Back there when the first one, in '60, when the first one talking about putting gas in there, they figured that it took 80-ton coal annually per year.
80? No, that's not very much ton of coal. 80
80 ton a day.
a day
A day.
to burn in the hospital.
Yeah, they had 3 boilers there at one time.
Yeah. Now, this was used for heating only, but it was used for heating actually the hot water as well, right?
That's
They
right.
were, did they ever convert to gas?
Yeah, they had.
At the time they closed you, was that when they?
That's when they closed it down.
Okay, they converted to gas and closed the mine down.
That's right.
Now, let's say this mine, number 2 mine, began in 1940, from what you know. Prior to that, I believe you told me on an earlier visit that there was a a mine at the hospital called Hogpen Holler Mine. Is that right?
That is correct.
You never worked there, nor
I
Mr.
never-
Palmer.
no.
But there are older men around who worked there, but you don't know how far back it goes, to
No, sir.
1920, or what point in the hospital's
No,
history.
sir, I do not.
There might be some elderly people around, 80 or so, that might know how long ago the hospital got its supply of coal, you thinking that is?
Ed Sprouse worked in
Ed worked in there.
Name these people now who you
there.
think
Ed
were.
Sprouse,
Ed Sprouse, Mr. Palmer?
yes.
He worked in Hogpen Holler, and he's an elderly man who might have been there for many years.
He actually got hurt in the hospital, in the mines, and never got a thing out of
Okay, Ed Sprouse, and he lives in Weston or out of Weston?
it. On Broad Street in Weston.
Okay. Who else do you think was at Hogpen Holler?
No, Bill Dennison, I think, worked some in there, and there's your cut right.
Now, Bill Anderson, where is he?
Dennison.
Dennison, okay. Where is he, Mr. Tenney?
Kitchen.
Kitsonville. Weston. Kitsonville.
And what's the other fella? Ed Sprouse, Bill Dennison?
There's your cut right.
What about him?
He worked at Hogpen Holler up in there.
And where is he now?
He lives back of the hospital or somewhere, Marley. Do you know where he bought at there? Now, what street? Couldn't even tell you.
Okay.
But it's a Western address, is all I can tell you,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Now, there's no telling then that there may have been a whole series of mines over the years the hospital was there that the state operated to supply that. Because on the state land connected with the hospital there was this vein of coal.
Right, you're right.
And they probably used it over the years. And
That's right.
you have no idea if Hogpen Holler was there for 30, 40, 50 years prior to
I do
the
not.
one time they closed. They
not
probably
have-
would close one mine and then they moved to number 2. You know, maybe Hogpen Holler was number 1 in a way and was there for many years. Well, the other thing I might ask you about, if it helps your recollection, you've brought along some photographs of the mine, which I'd like to talk with you about here and then afterwards. One of them apparently shows with his hard hat, lamp, and a...
Darrell Bourne, mine
Yes,
foreman.
that's Darrell Bowen. When was he the mine foreman? And he, you think,
Oh.
lives up here around Fairmont now?
Well, let's see, he followed in between Ott and Ott's 2 terms there.
Mhm. Okay, now you mean Ott came back in again?
Yeah, it was there twice.
Twice, okay. Under Underwood, the first time.
Under Underwood the first time.
Did he get under Archmore then? Is that on the last? Or I'm trying to figure out how long Archmore's been in effect. No, I don't think he.
No, I don't think.
Okay. Then some of these just show either the mule barn, horse barn that's
Yeah.
nearby, or some of the ponies and mules coming out, right?
Well, right here we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be the pony's deeds there. This is at the tipple here.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
see-
this is the scene of the two,
You see
yeah.
the branch here, and here's there's a car cut
Yeah.
off here to
Right.
here for the go to slate dump. We got
Okay.
a slate dump back out in here.
Okay, we're looking at a photograph of a couple of these ponies in the foreground, and with several tracks, including looks
Well,
like a
this
switch.
is our loaded track coming in to Tipple here,
All right.
and here's our empty track going back out.
Okay. Behind the horses is the empty track, and in
That's
the
right.
distance is a car that's been sidetracked
To go to
to
slate
go to
dump.
the slate dump.
That is right.
Now, where is the hospital in relation to these in the background?
Oh,
there?
it's
Way
on
back
left-
off to the
on-
left.
Yes, sir, it's off
Okay.
to the left.
Then here are the barns where the animals are kept.
Yes, sir.
How many four-legged beasts
Well,
would you
I-
have there? You
We
know?
had different amounts of stock there. Part of the time we had 6 head.
Mhm.
There was 1 or 2 times there that we had 8 head, as high as 8 head of stock there. As far
Since
as
you
mine
were the
goes.
mule skinner sometimes, why, is this a picture?
That is a picture of me.
That's you over the back of this mule.
Yeah.
Is that another, what's that in the, what's the markings there?
Well, that's just a little old shanty they had stuck up there, and here was a blacksmith shop. Now, I did a whole lot of work in there for them.
Mhm. Did you do the blacksmithing
I
on
done
these?
most of the
Okay.
blacksmithing in there.
You shoed these ponies?
I did.
Okay. Did you have to do other iron repairs and all?
Oh, yes.
All right. Now, here is a picture of, it looks like about 9 men. Now,
Yeah.
what building are they in?
Yeah, well,
It's a pot-bellied stove there.
that's a regular office. This is J. Thompson, Junior Hadner there.
Just hold a minute and let me just identify. You're doing the back row of these 9 men and
Yeah.
identifying the
Yes,
people.
sir,
Okay,
I am.
from the right to the left.
This is J. Thompson,
Yeah.
Junior Hadner, George Tenney here,
Yeah.
Frank Donaldson.
Mhm.
This is Gordon Ott right here.
Okay. Gordon Ott is standing in the back row at the far left. Okay.
That's correct.
Now you're coming down from left to right in the front row.
That is correct.
Mhm.
Noy Villers. This is Ed Sprouse here.
Mhm.
Bill Dennison.
Mhm.
Harry B.
Mhm.
And Morley, we don't have any of you in this.
Not in that photograph, huh?
Photo staff.
That makes Gordon Ott the foreman, and the
Yeah.
other men were the crew at that point.
That is correct.
Would that be fairly typical, a foreman and 8 men during most of the years you were there?
Well, that was the average base.
Okay. Now, here we got these were 2-horse teams, were they? But it looks like we got a third one in
There's
it.
the third one here.
Yeah,
That's
right.
a string.
There's
Oh,
a string here.
Yeah, the string. Here's tipple.
Right, I got you. Okay. Now, when you dumped into the tipple, what was the means of transport to the hospital?
Well, the truck.
Okay.
There was a chute underneath there where the truck just pulled down the
Okay.
tipple and loaded the coal and trucked it into the tipple.
The coal came out crushed enough so they could use it at the boiler.
Oh.
All right with that. Okay. Now, here's your string of 3 mules in this May 1958
Yeah.
picture. They're coming back in there with, that wouldn't be you, I guess, at that point.
Yeah,
It is.
that's me.
You're too far away to tell. The hills of West Virginia behind you.
Yeah.
Now, who is this gathered at the face around blocking post
All right.
in front of that car?
Now, this is the loader of this
The loader
place.
on the left, okay?
This is the loader. The man who's loading this car here.
Yeah. Who is he?
Now,
The fellow on the left?
Frank Donaldson.
Mhm.
Now, at that time, there were prisoners over there, and them prisoners just about had to run of the situation about any way they wanted to go there. This is one of them here.
That's a prisoner with
that
the
is-
light on his shoulder?
The
Okay.
light on his shoulder there.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know, but I think this was taken under Darrell Moore.
Mhm. That would have been in the 60s when they had
Now,
prisoners.
this is a fellow by the name of Mounds.
The prisoner was
yeah.
Mouncy.
Yeah, Mouncy. It's all I can tell you about him, all I ever knew about him. Now, this is me standing here. My team is hooked on the front end of the car there.
And you've gone to the back end of the last car to talk
I've
with them? Okay.
I'm waiting for him to
Well,
come
you
over.
actually are pulling these cars out one by one then, aren't
I'm
you?
putting them on the main line there
Yeah,
where I can get
right.
to them the string.
Um,
Line up a trip for the outside.
Okay, now, this is the first time you've mentioned prisoners. When did they start using prisoners in the mine at Weston? Was it in the 60s or all the way through?
No, it was back they used some prison labor around there in the 40s, as near as I can tell you.
When you first began, you can remember some of them?
It's late 49s, I think. when
Did they use
moved.
them continuously or just now and then?
No, they used tried to keep one or two around there.
What-
They tried to start with in order to cut hard help down. That's what
They was trying to save labor costs? So
that's what,
they were using prisoners against free labor in a way to knock
Yeah.
free jobs out.
that's right.
Where did they bring them from?
From Hutton'sville down there.
And where did they stay?
They had a barracks for them there to stay in, supplied guards there for them.
Did they use them in other respects than the mines? They
No,
used them on the grounds or
They
what?
used them around the grounds on the hospital there.
Mhm. So that the use of them in a mine was just one other use for them. They were using them generally.
Yeah,
When did they stop using them? Can you remember? Before they closed the mines?
oh yes, it was. No, they were still using them there during Underwood's administration. When the Democrats taken over.
Up until 1960, and then maybe it ended in the mines? Or? Underwood was about 57 to
Let's see.
61.
Let's see, when was that one picture you're taking? What's the
Well, you
date?
said Darrell
What's-
Bowen.
what's the date on
Oh,
this?
there isn't one on the edge of that picture. That one lacks a date.
Well, is there any others that shows? that was
No, I
taken
don't
at
see any
that time?
prisoners unless this group of men that you showed me had prisoners in it. There are no prisoners in that group, is there? This is February 1960, no prisoners there
No.
at the Pot Village stove. All right, when was Joe Scott a foreman? We haven't mentioned him.
Well,
Was he in the middle of this somewhere?
Joe Scott was the fellow that had taken over after Gordon Knott was there his last term, wasn't he? Army.
Okay. Now, you never had more than one or two prisoners, and they'd replace wage laborers.
That's
Three.
right.
You remember three, Mr.
There's
Palmer?
been four there about
Four
all the
when you
time.
were there. On which I want to back up a minute and ask you to review. I think you told me earlier. I want to go over Mr. Palmer, your work history a little bit. You said you had. Did you begin mining in Monongalia County?
Yes.
And that was. Would you name where you began and tell me about it?
Laurel Point for Walter Bankhead.
Now, he
Year
was actually
47.
doing business like on the coal, McCartney coal,
Yes.
but he was the actual operator.
He was the actual operator.
And that was at Laurel Point. And how long did you work there?
Last 3 years.
Starting in...
47 till 50.
Okay. Then you did something else for a while and then went to work at number 2 at Weston?
I went from there to Carl Banish
Mm-hmm.
at Mount Clair, or Lost Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Worked there for a while. And from there I went to Western State Hospital.
All right, that's the first time you worked at number 2 mine for the state of West Virginia in a coal mine. It was in the 1950s. Who was the foreman so we can identify when you went?
Mr. Lilly.
Mike Lilly. How long did you stay there that first time?
Was there about 3 years.
And were you laid off?
Yes.
At that first time, were there prisoners there that you can recall?
Yes.
Was it the number you were indicating, as many as 3 and 4 at that time? Okay. So there might have been how many wage workers? Maybe 6 or 8 and 3 or 4?
Well, it was about 6 colt loaders and
Yeah.
2 or 3 day men.
That were working for wages, and then the prisoners. Would the prisoners do different work in any way, or would they load along with the loaders?
No, they timbered, work track.
Were they picked because they had worked in mines, do you think?
I don't know.
Could you tell, or did you have to show them what to do?
Well, I'd say they wasn't too much experienced miners,
Okay.
because they had a men or two young to be too much.
They generally gave you very young guys, is that right?
Mostly,
So you'd
yeah.
show them what to do, pretty much. I think you told me that when you got laid off that time, you went to the coal mines near Glenville,
Right.
in Gilmer County. You returned, you said, to number 2 mine at Weston when?
Right.
The next following year
Yes.
after your layoff. And how long did you stay that time?
About a year.
Okay, this time you quit.
Yes.
Then would you tell me where you went to work?
Went to
Standard, was that?
Clarksburg.
Yeah, and that was Standard Coal?
Standard Coal.
Now, I believe you really went through Standard Coal. You told me you first went to work at which mine? At
Wilsonburg.
Wilsonburg, then to...
Sunset.
Both
Sunset.
those were union mines?
Yes.
Okay. This is still the 1950s probably, huh? Or...
It's in around 50 or 60.
Okay. And then you went from that to the third operation of
Yes.
Standard, which was at Lost Creek?
Lost Creek.
And that was a non-union mine?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. This time you stayed with Standard about, in all, how many?
I'd say 6 to 7 years altogether.
Okay. Did you ever return again to number 2 mine at Weston?
Yes.
What kept bringing you back? Was this your home?
I lived in my hometown.
So you were really
Born and raised
commuting,
there.
you were commuting from, when you lived at Clarksburg, you were having to travel from your home.
Yes.
You had a family, so they were staying down
Right.
there? Okay. Were these, was there anything different since you were working out, say, 6 or 7 years for Standard Coal? Like, did Standard Coal run a company store? Did they have script?
No.
Did they have anything different?
They gave script store if you wanted.
Right. Did you ever get any benefits, like at Standard Coal, medical benefits when you were at the union mines that you wouldn't have gotten at the state mines or anything?
Yes.
And you lost all that when you went to the state
Right.
mines? Okay. And did you ever feel you were working to earn a pension at the state mines in any way? Or how did
No, no pension.
And then you'd
they
still-
held off as retirement.
But in effect, they were taking your money, not paying you interest,
That's
I
right.
think you were saying. And
That's
you
right.
would have to ask them for the money back without
That's
interest.
right.
So that they were taking out retirement, but you didn't really... Did any of the men ever feel they could retire? Did any coal miner, to your knowledge, ever retire on the state through that retirement system?
Not that I know of.
No, I couldn't tell you if they had or if they hadn't.
Maybe a foreman somewhere might have by transferring around, maybe out of the mines to a state job somehow, but you didn't know of any local Lewis County miner that ever drew a
No,
pension?
I believe Bill Fiddler didn't get to retirement.
Fiddler?
Yeah, Fiddler.
Did he?
Bill was up in his 60s when he retired. He was old enough to retire.
Had he worked for many years at the mines, or was it just...
No, he hadn't worked too many years. He'd been there 2 or 3 years.
He just got to work late in life, so he made it, huh?
Yeah, he worked long enough to make it on the retirement.
Uh-huh.
And he was working there at the time of the retirement.
Uh-huh. So he might not have gone to work until he was in his late 50s or something, and he was able to retire in his 60s, something like that.
That is
Okay.
correct. And of course, he'd worked other mines,
But this he was able to do on the state and get at least a small pension somehow.
Yeah, I think so.
But otherwise, you don't know of any real retirement by any state employees
No.
that worked in those mines.
No.
Okay. What else you've heard Mr. Tenney describe, Mr. Parmer, the production there. You worked in other mines. Would you care to add anything to your observations of how they got the coal
just
out?
as Mr. Tenney said it, they described it taking 80 ton of coal to run the hospital yearly. That's about 80 ton a day.
80 ton a day, yeah.
80 ton a day. Which a lot of times, Mr. Tenney didn't bring it up, but they have been having to go back overnight and work to get that amount of coal out.
This would be in the wintertime when the
Yes.
coal, they didn't stockpile? Did they work you
stockpiled.
all summer and stockpile?
They stockpiled. But there were different times that we had to go back.
This is very
Overnight.
important. Good, okay.
We received no time and a half pay out of that extra time.
No time and a half for going back at
No.
night. How might they call you back? They'd be running low at the hospital, be a
Yeah.
cold spell?
They'd be running low on coal, and we'd have to go back in order to try to keep the hospital going with coal.
Might you have to actually be called from your home, or would you just double over? How would they work?
That was considered double back.
You double back, but you would just get straight time for it, or
That's
how would
right.
they pay?
We received no benefits of any
Mhm.
time and a half
Yeah.
or no overtime.
Okay. So that if you doubled back that way to get out the tonnage that was needed for the state hospital,
Just
you were
straight-
getting no overtime, you were getting straight time,
Just straight time, all the pay.
and the whole crew would have to be called out for this? Would you work an actual extra shift in the mines?
Well,
Or a portion of one?
we worked the biggest portion of the shift.
Uh-huh.
Once in a while, we'd work full shift. But anyway, to try to help them keep cold in order to keep those patients warm over there, why, that was our view.
Mhm. Do you think a lot of you felt some connection with the state hospital in the sense that you were helping on patient care? I mean, that you felt a
Well,
connection with people?
evidently, I feel down deep within my own heart that they're human, the same as everybody else, and they have to have fuel to keep them warm and be comfortable. And that's all any of us can hope and do. You never know whose relation's in there, or it could be mine, could be yours, it could be somebody else's. We never know those things. Or one of us could end up in a place like that, and we wouldn't want somebody just because they could say, well, now we've worked one shift, we're not going to work anymore. We wouldn't want them to do us like that. And what I think every man that worked in that mines there kind of placed himself in that category. That would be my judgment. At least that was my feeling about the whole situation. I knew that I had to work somewhere and make a living, and when I die and leave here, I ain't gonna take nothing with me, and that's all I was doing, making an existing living while I was there. And I tried to help and to give the state the best of my time and the best work I know how to give them under the period of hours we worked.
Now, you worked at number 2 mine for the state of West Virginia to furnish the fuel needed for the Western State Hospital for 25 years, Mr. Tenney.
Yes, sir.
You've just stated how you felt, and you felt many of the men felt, that they were contributing to patient care, to the warmth of the people that might, for other human beings.
That is correct.
Do you feel the state treated you fairly in view of the feelings that the men had and the comparative benefits that other people got from state employment?
Well,
from
according
mining
to the
employment?
benefits the other people has got, they didn't.
You may not have understood it at the time, but you think as you look back on it now, the 25 years were not rewarded. Is that what?
Well, if you stop and give it a reasonable thought and look back in sense of view from other mines and other jobs, the setup they have to take care of the men when when they retire or not able to work, I'd say the state of West Virginia has done a very poor job.
You were born in 1916.
Yes, sir.
This is 1974. You won't be 60 until 1976.
That's
You
right.
won't even then be able to draw Social Security yet
That's
under
right.
the present law. How are you making out in this period since you were laid off in 1970 with the
Well,
closing of the mine?
I'm working at the West Virginia factory up there.
Mhm.
I've got a job sitting there holding molds.
Hmm.
That's West Virginia factory, and
What are these, glass molds or what
yeah,
kind?
it's for glassware.
What kind of molds are these? Are these wooden molds? Or what
No,
kind?
they're steel mold. They mold this hot glass out of
Mhm.
it, blowed up, all
Yeah.
hand blowed stuff. And actually, the way I feel about it, for the more man I am, the work being able to go out there and do a day's work like I should do. Well, the state of West Virginia, the West Virginia Glass Company over there, I feel it has much more than went halfway with me because here in the past couple of years, they've supplied me with that job sitting there holding molds. Well, my back just won't stand walking across that floor carrying in.
Mhm. So the younger people carry heavy crates or something like that, and are
They
giving you a
carry
break, you
away.
figure. Okay. You may not be making a very high hourly rate, I'd assume, but you're
Well,
making out in terms of...
I'm only working 6 hours a shift. I'm working a hood owl shift.
Mhm.
And I get $2.57 an hour.
Mhm.
I'm actually getting more on the hour than the state paid me for working in coal mines.
Now, I wish you'd go back on some of those where you remember the rate, or if Mr. Palmer remembers the rate at a given time, for what you were doing. Were you hand loading too, Mr.
I
Palmer?
was.
Can you remember what the rate was at any particular time?
When I first started there, it was $1.65 a car.
Mhm.
When I quit, it was 2 and a quarter a car. The last year that I worked there.
And that was 3 different times you went back there. And how much would you come out with either a day or any way you could measure your
Well, you
your pay
averaged,
production times?
we're from 10 to, between 10 to 15 cars a day.
Mhm.
You're shooting it on the solid.
You what?
Shooting on the solid, filling with breast
Yeah,
over.
right. And then you were grossing before taxes and all.
Yes.
At times better than $15 a day and up to 20,
Yeah.
the low 20s, right? But by this point, you're almost up to 1970 when maybe union miners were making twice that latter, right? In terms of at
That
the
is
face.
right.
Also, you're about 1969 or 70 then. You're some of the few people left in the United States using ponies and hand loading, right?
That is
In
right.
mines. I mean, how many other mines you knew? You knew guys in smaller, even dog holes around. There weren't too
Well.
many left like that, were there?
I'll just tell you.
I don't know
I
about
just
it.
don't know of any that was running in 1970, unless after the state shut down, unless it would be the prison at Moundsville.
They still operate coal mines. at
My
the present
understanding,
moment.
that's where the mining stock went from Western State Hospital.
They may still be running it, as far as you
They
know.
have
As far as I know, they may be.
Okay. Well, it's also interesting that the state of West Virginia was still using, at this point, in a small operation, things that wouldn't have been used at all in private industry. No way, right? I mean,
That is right.
ponies, mules, and hand loading. They had no capital investment, really. It was your strong backs that had that was the
correct.
capital, right? And they
That is
weren't
correct.
paying. Were there any other things you noticed? Like you pointed out, you wouldn't have had to pay that 2% to the so-called flower fund or graft or whatever you want to call it. Like now with Watergate, we know what all this is a little bit. The people on top were skimming off for politics from your wages, and you were the lowest paid people, right? In a way.
We were low paid, there's no kidding about it.
Now, there might have been lower paid aides and people like that in the hospital, but I mean for hard labor competing with an industry that had high scales, you were low paid.
Another thing too, while I think about it, I don't see why that we can't get some kind of legislature that lets the state employees know what they've got in a deadline on leaving and taking up a claim against the state, such as this retirement. Now that is what they're fighting me, or the state's fighting me on right now.
Tell me about that, Mr. Tenney. You
All
mean where
right.
you drew your money out but didn't understand the
No,
consequences?
No, this is a different thing. Now, you take, for instance, now, when I left Mower, I went and signed up on this black loan.
Yeah.
What I don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
I went and signed up on this black loan. Now the state is rebelling me because I signed up 3 years later. They claim that I was, what they're fighting me on, they claim that I signed my leaving period go over 3 years.
No, they're saying that you can't file a workman's compensation claim against them?
After 3 years' time, what the state and state hospitals rebelling me on that now. I've got another hearing coming up in the near
Yeah.
future with them on that.
Well, I hope, based on the conversations I've had with you, Mr. Tenney, and with Mr. Parmer's permission as well, that what I can try to do with the material here is not only make people acquainted with it, because they should be,
I feel it.
and then see if there aren't people who are capable and coming to your assistance in pursuing your claims, because you gave of your time and your years and your labor, to help provide fuel for the state patients there.
That's right.
And I think in turn there shouldn't be like trickery used, to oppose your claims if they're justified.
Well, now, what last hearing that I had,
That was the position of the state, huh?
that was the position of the state because
That's on state workman's compensation claim for black lung.
that is
The
correct.
federals don't raise that issue. They know you worked underground and have so many years, but they're turning you down on other technical grounds.
States turned me down because they claim that I let it go too long before
I don't see how, that to me is not correct, and
They
I'd
said
like
that I
for some
didn't
of the state
file
officials.
within a certain deadline.
Yeah. Okay. There are people that may be interested in your case, and I'd like to, call it to their attention as well as give public attention
I
on this.
appreciate that very much.
Ever since I got acquainted with you when you came here for black lung testing, it appeared to me that this was an interesting, thing that the public didn't know about. I didn't know about it, and yet I've written about coal mining, and I've studied coal mine history, and I've followed the whole thing and was not aware that I'd heard about mines at Moundsville, but I think these ought to be like linked up because this one's more unknown, and then the public, maybe they're using prisoners up there, you see, and they don't have free labor. And prisoners, unfortunately, are denied their rights in a lot of respects, you see. But you all were on the free labor market, and I think if the public knows about that, then, there's a lot of sympathy because most working men put themselves in the same position.
Well, you put 25 years in coal mines. It took the best out of the man that is in him. He's given the best he's got out of his life, the best years out of his life.
There's no question,
After you pass 58 years old, by God, you're not the man you was one time. Not to begin with. Another thing, I don't have the wind. Should have.
you feel that you're short of breath.
I am short of breath.
And Mr. Palmer,
Get a
what are
little bit of
your
dust and
principal
just don't-
complaints, do you think? Is it shortness of breath or what?
Yes.
Have you tried, say, in hunting or anything, in climbing a
I
hillside
can't
where
climb.
you can't climb?
Go back.
How about steps when you go up to visit somebody with a lot of steps? Is that-
Well, I got a lot of steps, I'm still out of breath.
He was out and won't come up the steps here.
Now, this was just coming in the clinic from the first floor to the second.
That's right.
So you may have to stop halfway up a flight of steps.
If I had to go very far, I would.
Mhm. How about the effort of walking across twice a room like this, a 20-foot room?
Well, there's,
On a level doesn't,
level, it doesn't bother me as
but effort
bad,
is
but-
what bothers you.
And I have,
Yeah.
then where the air is close.
Right. You said your total time underground was about 18 years.
Yes.
That included the
places.
time at number 2 mine and otherwise. Now, in trying to get other, substantiation of what we've been talking about, the people you can think of are Ed Sprouse, who remembers the other mine, Bill Dennison, perhaps Ezra Cutright. That would be for Hogpen Holler and older mines. Then at number 2 mine, there are people that probably, if I visited down at Weston, you could arrange, it would be easier to see them and talk with them than it would be coming up, or are some of them just not people that even care to protect or defend themselves?
On that number 2 mine, there was June Hebner, Noy Villers.
Some of them are around, and
Oh,
we could
yeah,
meet them
no,
down there
both
maybe.
them-
But
both
getting
them
them to
were-
come up here on the side, they don't have that much time, probably.
Well, Junior kind of feels, now here's the way he kind of feels. He kind of feels, well, I'm not sure there's anything in it for me, so why should I go out and lose time up
Yeah.
and check on
Mr.
that.
Villers is a janitor at Catholic school.
Then Junior's wife works for the state institution over as tenant.
She doesn't know what
And-
repercussions it'd be.
And he doesn't know, and I think maybe that
Mhm.
that he's kind of delirious or he caused trouble for her or something.
Right.
I have no, there's a lot of thoughts runs through your mind
Sure.
that you wonder about.
Mhm. Well, I think what we might do is just not deal with anybody that feels uneasy about it, but where a man can't make it up here in terms of losing the time, if I visited them there, we might put together.
Well, now, Ed Sprouse, I'm sure Ed would talk to you if you could get down there to him. The old
Yeah.
man don't hear very good, but you could still explain things to him, and
You
And-
work on the cat-eye shift? Huh?
yeah, we're
Okay.
the whole time. Go to work quarter after 12 and work till 6:30 in the morning.
What are you doing on the interstate, Mr. Parmer?
Just labor, whatever they have to do.
How winded can you try to avoid winding yourself, trying to stay on a grade, or what?
Yes, if a lot of times I have to work on helper as on the air track, going rock.
Mhm.
I've got to get out and walk away from it after we get it set up, started drilling. I've got to get away from the dust, but I cannot get my breath.
Now, the dust there is real rock dust.
Yes.
And you were never probably you were in more dust, I'm guessing, maybe, around Laurel Point and places like that if they had
Yes.
undercutting and all that than you
Right.
had with here. You'd have more, at number 2 mine, what you're describing maybe is more of a blasting smoke and this kind of thing, huh?
Well, you take
No,
out
the drilling and
take out blasting smoke. You take when you fire a shot in them places. A loader usually goes back in there just as quick as he can possibly
Right.
make it back in there because he has to if he.
you were paid on a piece rate all the way through.
Yes.
He's paid on a piece rate. Well, a driver that's hauling that coal, well, if a loader is just shot and that driver comes up into his place, he can't sit down there and.
Well,
wait
another
as
thing,
long
you
as he
didn't,
has
what
to.
ventilation did you have in there?
Well,
Four.
we had fans there.
But
it-
no real ventilation shaft or anything, or did you?
No, we had air course there, what they consider an air course, main and.
Any
Line.
bradish cloth up?
Oh,
or
yeah,
anything?
we had radishes up.
So you had air coming in and turning and going back
Yeah,
out.
We did.
How large was your ventilating fan, you know?
It was about a 40-inch fan.
But you'd say it was pretty poor at taking away the
It's taking a good
blast
while
fuse
after you shot for the
out of
smoke and dust
smoke.
to leave out.
Well, that would depend on your last line, Brady, that was stowed in there, Marley. That's what that would depend on there.
Okay, is there anything either one of you would like to add to the story of this that seems
Well, we
important
worked
to you?
all
in history?
holidays over there except for Christmas, and we never did get no.
You worked every holiday except
Except for
Christmas,
Christmas.
and you never got
Just got
holiday
regular
pay,
pay.
you never, just regular pay.
That's all.
So the rest of the state employees were getting paid holidays, huh?
That's right.
No paid holidays, right? Did you
No.
ever get overtime for anything?
No,
No overtime.
no
Okay.
sick leave.
No sick leave. You were really the stepchildren of the state
That's
in
right.
employment, weren't you? And yet you were denied the rights that other mine workers had.
Yeah, and
So
if
maybe,
we laid off from that mine, we couldn't draw no unemployment.
Because, what was the reason for that? Because
Well,
you
the
weren't,
state didn't match us. They claimed the state didn't pay it, and therefore we could not draw any. We got
you mean
$100.
some people went down to the unemployment and they did not,
Cannot
they
go.
couldn't draw? Huh?
They give us 1 year there. They give us a vacation there. Now to start with, they give us a vacation without any pay. The mine foreman taking off. I was back there.
How
before
long was the
Marley went-
vacation?
Well, it was 2 weeks vacation. What was based on a 2 weeks vacation.
But you got no pay for your
We
vacation.
didn't get no pay. No. Now just a minute.
Go ahead.
Until I gathered up a bunch of the other men, Bill Dennis and some of the older men, we went in over there, and Bob Alford was business manager.
At the hospital.
At the hospital that time. He said, boys, I don't know. He said, if I'd have known that you're going to fall in a category like this, he said, I would have had Mike Lilly.
Go ahead. Mr. Tenney, you were talking about the business manager at the hospital telling you when you
All right.
received vacations without pay because Mike Lilly, the foreman, had taken off.
That's
He was
right.
on paid vacation, I take it, as foreman.
Yeah, he was. Now,
Right.
he was considered a monthly man. He was considered a paid vacation man each year. All right, our vacation there, we wasn't getting no vacation pay at that time. We told Bob we was over and checked. He first told us to go over and sign the thing on employment. We went over. The employment service told us very plain that the state did not pay on employment. But due to the reason they didn't match us what we paid in. We could not draw any unemployment. We went back and returned to Bob Alford, which was the manager of the state hospital. And in return, Bob turned around and called Charleston. He called Joe Burdette. And Joe Burdette told Bob, he said, go ahead and give the boys a vacation pay. So they established $100 vacation pay once a year first.
What year was that, Mr. Tenney? You'd been there about how many years?
That was somewhere in the late 40s.
Had you each summer before that, since 45, 46, 47, maybe had a 2-week vacation without pay?
Without pay.
Because the monthly man, Mike Lilly, he was given 2 weeks with pay, so
Yeah.
he would be gone, you'd be shut down, couldn't draw unemployment,
No.
and couldn't get paid until you took a
Up
group
until,
in.
up until they started this year vacation pay there,
And then it was a $100.
it was a $100
Did it remain
plan.
a $100 payment?
It was still, the last
you
year
left.
I got it, it was still $100. There wasn't no increase.
What did you say, Mr.
They
Palmer?
taking out your
And they take an income tax off
income
that.
tax out of that.
They take an income
They
tax.
treated it like wages.
Yes.
Treated it like
They
wages.
put it on to maybe your last pay, or do they pay it separately?
No, that would come in, like if you take vacation pay the 1st of July, when you draw a vacation pay the 1st of July.
Right.
All right. when the next payday come, why, then you
So
got your-
really, it was not a 2-week paid vacation because you might normally have been making $80 a week or $100 a week or more
Depend on-
in
depend on
gross,
the
and
hours.
yet it dropped to 50 a week, really.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that the way you all understood? It was less money than you were used to getting.
That is correct.
Maybe half or 60% of what you should have
Yeah,
been.
that's right.
Okay.
In 1965, I Bill maced that hand up.
Mm-hmm.
I averaged $42 a week.
Now, the hand you're showing me is your left hand.
And
You must have caught it in what?
I fell and run over it with a coal car.
All right, a coal car on that narrow gauge track ran over
Right.
it, and it looks like the small finger, the pinky, the fifth finger there, has been. This has been lacerated back in here as well. Is it
Yeah.
painful for the touch?
Oh, yes.
And
The whole
you
thing.
lost the last digit of it, the
That's right.
nail and the last digit, and a
Yeah.
portion of the second digit.
That is correct.
Did you almost lose the finger back in there?
Well, I've come close to it. I was off a good
Yeah.
while with it.
How long were you off over that
I was off
injury to
six-
your left
6
hand?
weeks. 6 weeks.
Now, what did you collect for that?
I collected $42 and something a week. for a
After the
period-
waiting period?
No, for a period of 6 weeks.
Okay, and that was what year?
65.
Were there other men, were there a good many injuries in a hand-loading man like this?
Well, Noe Villers had a fall to come on him, mashed the toe off for him.
Mhm.
And I don't think a man got any benefits out of it, only just
Mhm.
so much.
Did you ever have falls that covered up things in there, the cars or the?
Well, we didn't lose too many like that. Well, I think maybe during the period of years that I worked there, we lost 2 mountain cars there, and that was commonly neglected on somebody's part. So maybe a getaway boy had failed to have the car removed. But most of the time, we was pretty lucky. We kept the cars back out of the face of the place, or any places we thought might be bad. Why we didn't.
Well,
we
you
tried to
also
take care of
sound
the
like
stuff.
men that you cared for your equipment, you cared for the safety of the place. and
Well,
so
we
forth.
did. We felt we owned part of it, or
Yeah.
evidently it was the reason we taken care of it like we
Well,
did.
you were only 6 or 8 or 10 men together there with a
That's
foreman,
right.
and you probably figured it was more or less like it was yours.
Well,
Do you think that was your attitude you looked at?
the attitude that I looked at, myself personally, was I was another taxpayer.
Uh-huh.
And they'd taken money to get that equipment, and that what stuff they had there, and we didn't have too much to work with. The lifting jacks was something else we had trouble getting.
Uh-huh.
'Cause that's something they didn't get much of. And we didn't have what lifting jacks we got there. They after they got them prisoners there, they just threw them around. The first thing you know, you had no jack.
Uh-huh.
And I golly, the prisoners just didn't take care of stuff. Kept you busy, gathering stuff up, to try to take care of what little the taxpayers bought and furnished for you there.
See, if you think the views you're expressing were common amongst the men, that it was state property, you were protecting it because it belonged to all the people.
Well, I
There wasn't a great deal of property really in investment, but what there was, you tried to care for.
That's right.
Now, you actually served as the blacksmith of the place in that little blacksmith shop.
That's right.
How much, are you able to weld, or were you just doing hand forging and this
I'll
type of
tell
thing?
you.
And
Now we didn't have no welding there to do. Such things as we done shod horses and stuff like that. Now
you'd learned that earlier in life?
Oh yeah, I had, and sharpening the coal augers, fixed for the men. So forth.
How about the drill bits?
Well, I done
You
sharpen-
did that too, you sharpened drill bits? Okay. Now, yet you were paid how as a muleskin? Were you paid on a tonnage or
I
tonnage?
was paid on by the hour, maybe.
By the hour. What was your hourly rate when you went over to? And when did you begin doing the shop work, Tom?
Well, I had 2 or 3 different hitches of it.
A good many years, though, you were doing the shop work as well as your other.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What do you think was your hourly base pay, if you can remember it anywhere in that? What the progression of it?
Well, now, I'll tell you, actually, to be honest.
Or a day
It
or
was
anything.
2 something when I left from there.
In 1970, you were still making $2 and something?
And $2 and something was what I got up to.
If it was $2.50, it was only $20
It was
a day.
$18 and something a shift. No.
Okay, it was 18
What
something
the
a
other
shift.
something was,
Okay.
right now, I could not tell
And
you.
Mr. Parmer, if it was 18 something dollars a shift in 1970, actually guys working by the car could sometimes make more, is that right?
Yes, they average.
Because they do better than a day man, huh?
They averaged around $20 to $24 a day.
By the
car.
69, say that, right? Because was that based more on the fact they were probably putting out harder back-breaking sweat and labor, huh?
Right.
And you had become a day man, and yet were skilled, maybe under a union contract would have gotten a skilled rating for that, right? Because, okay. You know, you might not have been a blacksmith in rating, but you would have had to get something for doing those other duties. Yeah.
That's right.
You both have families, I take it. You're married, Mr. Tenney, and
Yeah.
have had how many children?
I just stepson.
A stepson, okay.
Don't have no children.
And you're living on US 19 south toward Sutton.
Right.
And you have how many acres there?
Oh, about 30 some acres.
And what are you raising on it?
Oh, raised potatoes, corn, gardens.
You, how do you plow what you got there?
Plow tractor.
You ain't about to get behind the mule there, are you, after all this? Huh?
I just couldn't follow one if I had to anymore.
Okay. So you don't have to shoe them.
No.
Okay, I guess what you know comes in handy now and then in fixing something else, though.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Palmer, you're married and you have
Yes.
how many children?
4. And one
Any of them at
stepchild.
home, or?
I have a stepchild at home, adopted child at home.
Right. And are you having to travel? Where's the I-79 construction? How far is it from where you are?
Well, it's 2 miles. We're out there to the starting of it.
Mhm.
It's 8 miles. The job is 8 miles long, so I'm over all of them.
You have to move as I-79 construction moves, and it may go further and further from Weston now that they've
Well,
bypassed
it's,
it, doesn't it?
the job is 2 miles out of Weston to the job, but after you hit the end of the job, it's 8 miles from one end of it to the other.
Mhm.
In other words, I'm working all over that 8 miles.
You live at 329 Broad Street in
Right.
Weston, and you're actually the interstate has come in there pretty strong towards Clarksburg, hasn't it? Being completed, and is it getting completed south of Weston pretty fast towards Glenville? Or
Well, there's some spots it is, and
others are under
Glenville.
construction. Is there anything else? You've been very helpful, and I think Mr. Tenney's essential story, Mr. Palmer has added to in very important ways to remember certain things like that we might have left out. Either benefits you didn't get, or conditions on the job, or that type of thing. You got no free medical care being connected with the hospital because it was a mental hospital. Your employment in no way assisted you that way. You didn't get any commissary privileges. You had nothing coming to you by being connected there. Maybe the workers there got free meals or something, but that
You
didn't
might
help
say,
you.
you might say our last paycheck was it.
Now, when they paid you off after 25 years, you just got that last paycheck, no severance pay,
No.
nothing. Right. All right. Anything else then that either one of you want to add? Because this is essentially, unless I think of something later, given me, you've named the foreman. You think the Darrell Boren, is it, or Bowen?
It's born.
Boren is up in this Fairmont area.
Here's where he originated from.
And he may be he's young enough to still be working somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay, is it? And Gordon Ott is retired at Rachel, I take it?
Yeah, it's I believe.
You think he's died?
I think the guys are in the hospital.
Oh, I see. You think Gordon Ott died?
Well, now,
Mhm.
he's got some family around here.
Yeah, well,
Now,
the Otts all over Rachel, I know, and I know
Imagine.
his father.
Didn't we look him up and direct you?
I think we might have looked him up and thought he had a phone, but
Yeah.
that might still mean it was the last printed. We'll try to find out. What I wondered about these is whether you think someone else took the pictures and has the negatives, just gave you the prints.
Yeah.
I was wondering about if you'd be willing for me to copy some of these and return them to you.
Yeah.
Would that be agreeable?
Well, if you will take care of them.
I will take care to get them copied by a photographer here, and I'll just want some of them, and when I copy those, I'll return all of them to you.
Okay.
And then I'll be in touch with you depending on what comes out of it. If we can be helpful in any way, about your black lung appeals, well, please let us know. Anybody got anything else to add?
I could use the black lung if I could get it.
Right. And if there's any way, we don't determine those things, but we know a little bit about them. If we can help you in any way, we'll try. Then we'll end this recording at this time.